Okay, Jared Lickery, thank you so much. And we are going to stay on the tensions between Ukraine, Russia, and the West and what it means for energy. Let's bring in our next guest, Scott Bauer, Prosper Trading Academy CEO. Scott, thanks so much for being here. So a lot of conflicting messages. We started the day hearing that possibly there was some diplomacy happening and talks were going to go through between Russia, Ukraine, and the West. All of a sudden, now we get this report from CBS saying that satellite images show that troops are moving into position from the Russian side into the Ukraine. And so, as I say, a lot of mixed messages. How concerned are you that there is an invasion? And if there is one, what happens to oil prices and gas prices in this country?
So I think we should all be concerned for more reasons than just the price of oil if there's an invasion, from the humanitarian side. But I'll be honest with you, I think that there is maybe 5% or so already priced in to the price of looking at if there's going to be an invasion here. And if you look at what's happened between the spread between West Texas and Brent, that's down to $1, and it may have just ticked, in the last few minutes or so under $1. And that is because of what is going on, the supply constraints of what may happen here. But I really think that if there is an invasion, which we all hope to God there is not, that I don't know that we're going to see the spike that some people think. Again, I think there's a good 5% of the price of oil already priced in.
Yeah, we all hope there isn't a war. And I think it is important to mention that Putin, says that he is not planning to invade. And there are talks scheduled with Germany's Scholz and Putin tomorrow. So let's see how those develop. But I want to ask you more about the long-term picture as far as supply and demand. What does that look like to you? Do you actually see Russia pulling natural gas and energy off the table for Europe? And do you see Europe, halting all sort of imports because they rely on Russia so much for their energy needs?
They sure do. I mean, they supply about 35% across the board of natural gas and of energy and of other commodities. So, I'm not in the political sphere, if you will, but I think it would certainly be really not in their best interest if Russia pulled back on supplying to the rest of Europe many of these commodities. I think that would be a really tough situation for the Russian people, for the Russian economy. Obviously, if it does happen, we would see prices spike, which I think, again, maybe some of these commodity prices are getting ahead of themselves a little bit. And the volatility we're seeing, is there because of the situation that's going on. Natural gas, what's up, 6% today? If they do invade, I could see a quick spike and then pull back from that. I think some of the grains, the commodities, wheat, et cetera, I think you could see the same kind of situation there. In terms of overall supply and demand in the oil space, what's going on right now geopolitically is coming at a time where demand continues to recover from the pandemic. In fact, the IEA, the International Energy Agency, just raised its demand forecast for 2022 by almost 1 million barrels a day. So that is a huge, huge number. But right now, it's supply that has the upper hand. We all know the demand is there, but it's the concern about what supply we have that is really helping to drive prices.
So then that brings me to my next question. And, Iran nuclear talks seem to be going better at this particular time. And Russia is actually helping to mediate those talks. What is the probability that we bring Iranian crude oil back onto the market? And how does that change the dynamics up?
So in a perfect world, if things go well and they do start producing again and they start, supplying to the world, you're talking about 1 million barrels a day. That's what was taken off. Now, that's nothing to sneeze at, but it's really in the overall grand scheme of things, it's not a huge amount. However, in this particular environment right now where there is such a supply crunch, that can greatly affect the price of crude. In the long run, though, in a more normal environment, let's say, I don't think that them coming back online really affects the price of crude too much.
Okay. And then I want to ask you about OPEC and its allies worried that it can't deliver on the targeted output that it says that it's supposed to do 400,000 of barrels of oil per day. Do you see that actually being a risk, or do they follow through on what their targeted output is?
I think at this point, I think they follow through. Typically I have a very, let's say, gray, skeptical outlook on what OPEC and OPEC Plus says they're going to do. But I think during these times with the geopolitical climate that we're in right now, I do think they can deliver. I'm quite frankly more concerned longer run about U.S. companies and shale drillers and when they might decide, to get back into the ground, because we all know what happened a couple of years ago with demand destruction. They pulled out. We've seen, that supply just almost halt. And now they're so concerned about their shareholders. They're being really timid about, getting back to production. So to me, down the road, that is the biggest, maybe difference maker in what can happen for supply.
Yeah, you and President Biden both worried about the same thing. I'm sure that is something top of his mind as energy prices rise, gas prices rise, and midterms around the corner. We'll have to leave it there. Scott Bauer, Prosper Trading Academy CEO. Thanks for your perspective today.